This is Sean Castrina. I'm the best-selling author of multiple business books. I've founded countless companies. I've shared the stage with Tony Robbins, Maxwell, Jon Gordon, and countless others. Today on the show, we're going to talk about highly successful business addicts. We're going to talk about why business plan books suck. And we're going to talk about the formula for being a billion-dollar employee. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our delicious conversation with Sean Castrina. He's a best-selling author of 3 books, including 8 Unbreakable Rules, which in part 1, he told you how you could actually get your own copy of it free. How about that? And he's also the author of a brand new book called The World's Greatest Business Plan. He's contributed to Forbes, Money Magazine, Inc., Yahoo Finance, and countless others. He shared the stage with people like Tony Robbins and John Maxwell, and he is also, of course, the host of the 10-Minute Entrepreneur podcast. So let's dive right back into Sean and having our conversation with Sean. Let's talk about this latest book, Sean. Let's dive into that. Your latest book, The World's Greatest Business Plan. Business plans, oh my God, dry, boring, horrible. Nobody wants to talk about them. And yet you're saying there's the world's greatest one and it works. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, the world's greatest business plan, the concept behind it is that, I start quite a few companies, right? And I get asked to start one. And I recently had been involved in about 3 startups over a 2-year period. My son wanted to start one. And so at 19, I was like, how can I simplify this? But I wanted him to go through the process, the due diligence of a business plan. I mean, you wouldn't go into if you were a coach, you coach a team, you have a strategy on how you're going to win. You look at what you can do well, what you need to overcome, and, who's their best player. This is common sense. Same thing in business. So I started going on Amazon. I'd order business plan books, and I ordered like 13 of them, and one was worse than the next. They're like 300 pages. And in every book, what I found is that they assumed the business would succeed. So they'd reverse engineer the book. So in chapter 1, Susie and Donnie start ABC Supplies. In chapter 14, the business is a great success. They're giving money to charity. Everything went perfect in every one of these books. And a professor wrote the book. And I'm like, wait. I've never had that experience. I've never had a business go the way I thought. Either it did way better than I thought, it scaled faster and I needed to adjust on the fly, or everything I thought would happen didn't happen and I had to absolutely make a massive pivot to profitability to find a different direction because, it was crickets. It was, we weren't doing that. And so my philosophy in a business plan is okay, we don't need 300 pages, number one. There's just critical questions that you have to ask in a business plan, and you'd be wise to ask them. And so I just kind of broke it down in the simplest form possible. But over 20 years of starting businesses that I thought, if you did this, it would give you a much greater chance. And I did it with my son, and he launched a very successful company. So, I know it works. And I've launched, a couple companies just in the last 2 years. One's going to hit $1 million. It's 3rd year in. So I know they work. I've scaled multiple $1 million companies. So, I know it works.
So what are we missing when it comes to business plans? What are we missing? It like I said, it's dry, it's boring usually.
Yeah. But it's due diligence. You got to look at a business plan like this. For every hour you put into a business plan, it's probably 10 hours of aggravation and $10,000 you're going to save. So all this front end knowledge, let's just kind of like, if I go really quickly in it. Okay,
sure.
The first thing is I ask a person, why do you think this business will succeed? Just tell me. And then go into a bar, a pub, and ask 10 people if they think this business will succeed. That may sound really dumb, but you'll get some good advice. Ask people if they would ever pay that amount for that product. In other words, the problem is in entrepreneurs, in our mind, we absolutely believe it's the greatest idea in the world. And sure, people will pay for that. And a business plan should test that theory. Who's your competition? What's going to be your competitive advantage? Why would people buy from you over them? Okay, you're pricing at this. Well, how can you build, can you get it manufactured for that? What is your profit margin? What are your expenses? Okay. I mean, these are just, how much is it going to cost to start the business? How much is it going to cost to continue the business? Who do you need to open the doors on day one? I mean, this is just common sense, but you got to answer these questions.
Right.
Because if not, you're going to have a lot of expenses that you never saw coming.
Always.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing there, Sean, is that, as we talked about in life, but also in business, is stuff's going to come out of left field, right? The feces is going to hit the fan and you didn't expect it. I.e., let's just take an example, a pandemic. And suddenly you cannot do business for maybe a year, right? There's no due diligence for that.
And I always say you can't strategize life around an outlier. And a pandemic defies all logic. I mean, if you own a restaurant during a pandemic, I can't tell you I have any great idea for you.
Right.
I'd learn how to deliver. I would learn how to do family meals and deliver them. I know what I would do. I'm not saying it would work, but I know the pivot I would take. But just in business in general, the point is what you're coming to. There's going to be stuff you can't plan for. There's no doubt. No business plan can cover everything.
Right.
But when you're doing your business plan, you got to think of, okay, one thing in a business plan is what's other revenue streams you could tap into. So I do a business plan, and let's say this is my ideal situation. I'm going to sell these widgets.
Yes.
My business plan, I also got to be, what are other things that I could sell within this industry and things of that nature? You got to have a plan B. You may not want to use it, but you got to consider that a plan B may be necessary. And clearly, with the pandemic, that kind of violates every rule of business.
Yeah, of course. But, it's one of the things you were saying about the business plans is that they start with the presumption that everything is going to go right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where the fault lies, is that that's not actually what happens. It doesn't go quite like that.
Yeah, no. And it's funny, but on the front of a business, there's a lot of times I have a business idea and I think it's really good. And then I go through a business plan and my business plan disqualifies it. This is one of my key things in a business plan. If a business plan gets you not to go forward with the business, it achieved its goal. See, a business plan is not designed to pat you on the back and say, go do it. It's equally responsible to tell you to not do it, to pause, to rethink this, to consider something else. For every one business plan that I did that told me this was a great business, 4 told me it wasn't a good business.
Mm-hmm.
So a business plan is allowed to talk you from jumping off the bridge.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? I mean, we fall in love with our own ideas.
Right. So we reverse engineer a business plan to support our theory instead of asking, other questions that are painful.
Right. So this is going to be $1 million business in a year. So what do we need to do? As opposed to, well, maybe it won't be. Let's find out.
Yeah. Well, I always say, well, how are you going to attract customers?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to do social media. Okay. Do you have experience with, have you had success with social media in business? You start asking those painful questions. Well, in other words, business is fairly simple. The one thing I like about business, I'm a simple guy. You only got to do 3 things well in business. You got to attract customers, sell customers, and fulfill what it is you sold them. Rinse and repeat. If you think about it in its most simple form, if you can't attract customers, well, then you have nobody you can sell. And then once you sell something, you have to fulfill it, whether it's a service or a product. You got to get what they paid for to them and provide the service end of it. Business is fairly simple. It really is. But a business plan dissects all those things. How are you going to attract the customer? What makes you think? So maybe you need to beta test your attraction thing. Maybe you start a site and you do pre-sales. So instead of going all in on this product, maybe you sell a polite email. You got 100 orders. You say, we're delayed a week. We're delayed on something. Okay, we're going to give you something for free for your patience. But I'd rather apologize and put something in play because I got 100 orders than get everything in play and have no orders. And I've laid out all this money. I'd rather do the email apology saying, hey, we're going to give you something extra for your patients. We had such an overwhelming response that your order is going to be 3 weeks behind. We've all gotten that.
Of course.
Okay. I mean, in other words, you got to beta test something. You got to see if it's going to resonate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that you and I had talked about before, is again part of the work here, is that you believe that employees should always be thinking like entrepreneurs. And, I don't have to tell you, as well as I do, that the engagement levels of workers is not great. To just go in and do stuff, getting them engaged enough to actually think and behave like an entrepreneur. Talk to us about that.
I think the reason why I always say, employees should think like entrepreneurs is, okay, let's just first define what an entrepreneur thinks like. Entrepreneurs are opportunistic. The biggest thing entrepreneurs we look for opportunities. We look for ways to leverage things, to do A and get B and C out of it. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These are, why wouldn't we want our whole team to be like this? The one thing I tell my staff when I hire them is, when we have a meeting, I say, I don't have to have the best idea here. Okay. Now, my team knows that they are allowed to bring good ideas to the table, and they're allowed to destroy my ideas. My ideas sound great in my head, and then my partners and my employees, well, you thought about that. But on the other side of that, they're allowed to bring a great idea to the table. I tell my partner, listen, if you bring a great idea, I will bankroll that idea. I will put that idea in play. If you have a culture like that within your business where anybody at any level can propose an idea, you have an idea box. Hey, if you have an improvement or an opportunity, we need to take advantage. However you do that, and it's, Joe Wilson down in the mailroom, it doesn't matter who comes up with the idea.
No.
You reward that. But if you create that culture that, hey, listen, we want to invest in people that can improve what we're currently doing, see opportunities we currently don't see a better way of doing what we're doing, that's entrepreneurial thinking. If you have, 25 employees and only 3 of you are allowed to think because you have the fancy office, and you're missing out on 22 people that are actually in the granular part of your business and are probably have 5 different ways to improve things, to speed things up, to be more profitable. They're closer to the playing field than you are. Why wouldn't you want their ideas? I just think you've got to foster a culture of, I want your ideas. I want your improvements. I can't wait to hear them. I will invest in them. I will invest in you. You come up with something great. You show me that you can lead it. I'll bankroll that division. I'll bankroll that new profit stream within our business.
Yeah, but this is the key, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about the importance of an organization facilitating that behavior. It's not just that employees need to think like entrepreneurs. It's that leaders need to give the opportunity to create that opportunity for people to say, okay, I'm not afraid. Because a lot of the time, disengagement is really about fear. It's like, if I say something, I'm going to get shut down. If I say something, I'm going to get shamed or humiliated or even potentially fired. And what you're talking about is embracing that.
Yeah, I forgot. I'm running a blank, but the one with Facebook. Oh golly, what's her name? Geez, she's worth over $1 billion. She came over from Google, and it'll hit me. But here's, I can name a lot of them. But
you're talking about Cheryl?
Yeah, Sandberg. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. But these are employees that are worth $1 billion because she figured out how to monetize. Facebook wasn't making a dime until she got there. Look at Steve Ballmer. He was Bill Gates' assistant in 1980, coming out of Stanford Business School. Bill Gates, obviously, with Microsoft. Steve Ballmer is the single largest shareholder of Microsoft stock. He's worth about $60 billion. He was an employee. I can keep going. Tim Cook at Apple was an employee. The point is, you don't have to be the founder to bring incredible value to a company and be rich And I just gave you 3 examples of Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook, of people that were not introductory founders, were not, in the original team, and were employees, and every one of them are billionaires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. I think that we tend to go, well, that's for the big boys, and you can play at that level. You just have to, again, it's a level of self-trust to say, and the thing is, you may be in an environment where it's not appreciated, it's not recognized, but we are actually in a talent market where you can take your great idea somewhere else, and somebody will listen and will be happy to listen and will, as you said, bankroll it and support you in the process of it.
It's funny. My son, who handles TikTok for a very well-known personality, I'm not going to say this person's name right here, but he was in Forbes magazine, 50 richest Americans under the age of 50. So that just kind of puts you at the level that he's at. And my son does his video work with TikTok and all that. And he takes my son to dinner about a month ago after he did a big event. And this is what he says to my son. He says, Colin, I want you to bring me 10 ideas a month. 10 ideas a month. We're going to run with one of those. Eventually, you're going to bring one of those to me. That's great. And I tell you, when my son was done, he left. He believed it. He's like, no, I got this idea. The next morning, on my Instagram, this person left me a 1-minute message, a voice message, about how sharp he thought my son was. He goes, listen, kids like that don't happen by accident. You and your wife did a great job. Did a great job. But the point is that my son, 20 years old, and this billionaire is saying to him, hey, bring me 10 ideas a month.
Mm-hmm.
To a 20-year-old. Why? Because he knows ideas can come from anyone.
Yes.
Anyone.
Yeah. And again, I think that this is part of our corporate cultural blind spot, is that, as you said earlier, that we're only allowing ideas from the top 3 guys with the biggest offices, instead of saying, hold on a second, well, what does the janitor think? What does the front desk person think? What does, this person who's only worked here a week think? Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Everybody can bring everybody can contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So let's talk a little bit about, I use the metaphor in the introduction around Achilles heels. And the thing about an Achilles heel is it's another metaphor for a blind spot. A blind spot is something you cannot see. We cannot see ourselves. And the problem with power and success is the higher you climb in those things, often the more difficult it is to see your own blind spots, because people won't point them out because there's a power imbalance. You've talked a lot about your Achilles heel, the awareness of that you were using prescription drugs without even realizing you were addicted. What is some of your guidance around helping people to potentially see their own blind spots, their own Achilles heel, the thing that could bring them down?
Hey, I this is what I tell people, is that you know who you are. That's the sad part. You typically know who you are. And I say, if you have like any behavior that you do not have control over, whatever the habit is, you're a functional alcoholic, whatever the case may be, or you have that one thing that if it was brought to light, you'd be humiliated, embarrassed, or whatever the case may be. We all, everybody has different things that, you just need to be aware of that. And it's better to, it's better to win that battle than to lose that battle, because the fact that you have a weakness, this is the thing that doesn't diminish you in any way. I don't care what it is. Listen to me, I don't care. I'm old enough to know I've heard of, there's nothing I haven't heard of, from drugs to perversion to everything in between. Just so you know, everybody who's got that, there's a reason why it rarely does it, but you can overcome it.
Yes.
No, it doesn't have to. What I always say, it doesn't have to be the final chapter. It can be the chapter in the book. Okay, it's in the book. I was addicted to this. I did this. I don't care what it is. but it doesn't have to be the last chapter.
That's true. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. So, Sean, what do you think is your superpower?
I identifying talent in people when they don't see it in themselves. Finding business in business, I'm really good at finding great partners, people that would never see themselves at the top of the, but I look at it and I'm like, I saw that person in that sales meeting. That person was quiet, but the smartest person in it. That's how I started my digital marketing company. It's going to do $1 million. And we have our 4th employee in like 3 months. And I was getting pitched by all these people on digital marketing. My TV station was pitching me, my radio stations were pitching me, and the quietest guy in the room was the smartest guy in the room. I called him the next day. He's the only one. I got rid of everybody's business card. I took his business card. I called him up the next day. I said, James, listen, I'm going to sign on with you all. If once a month you'll come to my conference room and under 15 minutes or less, explain to me what I spent money on, because I don't understand this whole digital marketing thing. He did that for like 6 months. But when in that first call to him, I said, but by the way, James, at some point, you and I are going to start a company together. You're going to come work for me. I was also, when I agreed to do it, well, guess what? He did a great job. 6 months later, I said to him, I said, James, have you ever been to Disney World, you and your family? He goes, no. I said, I want to pay for you and your family to go to Disney World. He goes, well, why would you do that? I said, remember what I told you the first time we met? I said, you're either going to be a business partner of mine or employee. 3 years later, he and I have $1 million digital marketing company that he runs. He would have never, ever, ever in a million years saw himself running a company.
Right.
For the first year, I had to remind him he could do it. I'm like, no, you're doing great. He'd get so overwhelmed. That's my superpower. Seeing potential in people that they don't necessarily see in themselves. And now I have multiple companies, lots of partners, so many feel-good stories like that.
Beautiful.
Where I remember hiring a guy for $850 a week. I'll never forget it. Tony was like, pay me $850 a week. I said, Tony, I'd love to pay you $850 a week. I'd love to, but I'd be stealing from you. So why don't you take a percentage of the profit? And I said, I'll guarantee that you'll make $850 a week, but why don't we do a profit sharing? Last year, he made $250,000. He's made it over $200,000 for the last 4 years. He wanted $850 a week. What do you think? He would take a bullet for me right now.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, his wife at our holiday kisses me on the cheek every time. All my partners' wives do, and say, just want to know, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
what a gift.
That's what's fun.
So in the face of understanding the humanity that you've been discussing here, and you've talked about it earlier where you said that leadership is a constant state of development. What is the one thing that you still see as holding you back in any area?
Yeah, no, I think that you get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think what happens is you get comfortable. You like me, you hit 50 and you're like, do I really want to sprint another 30 years? And my kid, you get comfortable. I'm making, more money than I ever thought I'd ever need. But then you look at your companies, you go, but we could go to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a level, maybe we should consider franchising this business. So I think with mine, I get comfortable, and I have to go, okay, wait, no, we got another sprint ahead of us. Yeah, we got another and Warren Buffett's doing it at 89 years old. His business partner's Charlie Munger at 96. So you got a
couple of young pups.
Yeah, a couple of young pups just doing billions. So yeah, I think it's always challenging yourself. Just always getting something that you're excited about and is for in the future. Like you haven't hit it yet. You always got something that you're reaching for.
Yeah, I love that. So as we finish up here, I always like to finish up by asking my guests to give us one piece of practical advice, something that preferably our listeners, our viewers can go away and do possibly right away, but certainly within the next 24 hours to implement what it is you've been talking about today with us.
Yeah.
What would that be?
I mean, it's so simple, but I still do it. I have like a 5x7 note card I always carry around with me. Write your goals out every day. I know you've heard it a million times, but I'm just telling you this, but this is the secret. This is the next part of it. Take action on one thing every day. Don't have more than 5 goals. I don't buy into the 100 goals thing. Have 5 that really move the needle, and 1 that if you hit it, it's a life changer. And every single day, take action on a goal. And number 2 is create habits that make goals happen. Like example, when I set a goal to be an author, well, guess what? I created a habit to get up and write every morning for 10 minutes. So with the goal came a habit.
Yeah.
So I think you set goals, you write them down every day, you create daily habits that make these things happen, and just keep relentlessly pursuing them. I've never met anybody successful that didn't have goals.
Yeah, I also haven't met anybody who was really genuinely successful who hadn't consciously chosen to create habits around what it is they wanted in their life. It's that simple. If you don't, if you don't, you'll end up with what I call Monday syndrome. And Monday syndrome is, I was going to do it, but Monday came and I just gotta, and then you end up, I had to, and I had to do that. And there's all these obligations. But if you create habits, it's like, this is what we got to do.
Let me see your calendar. I'll tell you what your goals, what I interpret your goals as.
Yeah.
And they may be none. I may look at that and go, you're in survival.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a really important thing to, so, part of that habit thing, and I do this and I recommend it too, is that in your habits is that you need to put that in your calendar to do it. Absolutely. So, if you're going to work out, it's in your calendar. You're going, oh, my calendar's for work. No, it has to be in there, right? It's in there. Writing is in my calendar every single day. Reading and studying is in my calendar every single day. Meditation is in my calendar these are examples of things that I genuinely have in my calendar because I understand that's what keeps me on a path. Yeah. Because like you, I can go off on any path, any tangent, any little shiny object. But Absolutely. If I've got, this is what I have to do now. So I think that's great advice. Thank you, Sean. Well, we've come to the end of our second part of the show. I would love again for you to make sure that everybody knows how they can reach out to you, how they can find out more about you and all your fabulous resources. So please tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram. And of course, you go to SeanCastrina.com and you can download a free book. You can't beat that, a real free book. So go download 8 Unbreakable Rules, the digital versions on there. I think that'd be great for you.
Fabulous. And of course, as I said, we will make sure that all the links are posted in the show notes so you'll be able to get a hold of them. Again, thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And for you, dear listener, remember you can hang out with other conscious leaders and chat about this episode or any past episodes inside of our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Just look for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist for you or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com. Because unified actualized meaning is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about your Achilles heel, confronting it so that you can overcome it, and take your success beyond success to fulfillment and making the kind of difference that you're here to make. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, in your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.